To cut the ports in the steam chest face, I'm going to be using a slot drill. Rather conveniently, I've got one appropriately sized at 1/8 or as good as 3.2mm. I have, just to make sure I don't do anything really stupid, marked out on both of these faces the appropriate dimensions, but this is done very lightly because I don't want to score the surface. As is normal for me, I'll be working very much by the DRO. I've already touched off to find the surface and I need to go down to 7mm, but I'll work my way around the larger of the ports first. To cut the main port, I do multiple cuts around about 1/2mm deep each time. That's the centre port cut. I'm looking for a depth of 7mm, 7.02, I can live with that. The end ports are a single pass for each cut, so much quicker to do. The ports in both cylinders have now been completed. I did make a couple of minor errors here. Firstly, all the ports on this block are around about 1mm higher than what they should be, and by that I mean located 1mm too high with respect to the bench, so when fitted they're a little bit more outboard than what they should be. And on the other block I did slightly overcut the left hand port just here at the top, and this despite me having marked out the port positions on the surface beforehand, but I don't think either of these will cause me any problems. For the passages that run down from the steam chest ports into either end of the cylinders, Don is very light on detail. He does specify 2 passages at each end, both dimensioned at 1/4 by 532, so 6.4mm by 4mm for me, and located either side of the centre line of the cylinder. It does all seem a little bit tight to me, and I've got no way of machining passages of that dimension, so instead I'm going to drill through with a pair of passages on each side. I'm going to start with 3mm diameter and see how it looks, but I think if I get much bigger than that, I'm really going to start to encroach back into the cylinder bore or out towards the edge of the cylinder covers. It should be self-explanatory, but let's have a quick run through on the setup I've got here. I've got one of the cylinders clamped into the vise with the steam chest face against the fixed jaw, and a piece of round brass bar on the other side just to make sure the jaw faces aren't fighting each other. And as it's an adjustable vise, I've got it set at an angle, which we'll come back to in a minute. On the cylinder end, which is a top face in this view now, I've scribed a number of lines. The lines that are running front to back correspond to centre lines for the ports I'm going to be drilling, and the horizontal lines are the corresponding centre lines on the x-axis. And we can see here how I've used the wiggler to align the quill to one pair of those lines. And if we now come back to the frame face, we can see here that I've marked out the outline for the ports that need to be connected to the ends of the cylinder, and it may be a bit faint, but I've also scribed a line to indicate the midpoint, top to bottom, when the cylinder is fitted, of that port. Now by moving the table across so that the wiggler is on this side of the cylinder block, I can bring the quill down and we can see the path that the drill will take, and as we can see here it touches right on the midpoint for the port. And this is the method I've used to set the angle on the vise. To drill the passages, I start off with an end mill to give me a flat surface for the centre drill and the drill to start into, and then I use a centre drill followed by a stub drill and eventually go all the way through with a normal twist drill. This is the last of the cylinders completed. I did modify my approach slightly as I went along because I wasn't too comfortable with the results from the first set of passages. The differences are not significant, as we can see here with the first passages on the left and the final set of passages on the right. And in this view we can see how the passages break through into the port on the steam chest face, and the offset we're seeing corresponds to the slightly different starting positions as the passages are aligned to the diameter of the cylinder bore. The final passage to cut is the exhaust passage. This runs from the middle port on the steam chest face out through to the frame face, and I'm taking the same approach with this passage as I did for the previous ones. by marking them out on the end of the cylinder block and then visually aligning the block in the milling machine accordingly. These lines represent the steam chest port. These the hole that I'll be drilling in from the frame face, and this angled line will be the center line of the passage joining the two. The center for the hole that comes in from the frame face I previously center drilled, so at this point I'm just gauging the depth I need to drill down to. I drill this hole out to 7mm and then open up the top part to 10.2mm to allow me to tap it at 7/16 by 32 TPI. For the angled part, I again use my adjustable vise and use the wiggler to position it accordingly. First I use a slot drill to give a flat surface and then run straight through with a stub drill. And with a bit of help from a light, we can see how that passage goes all the way through. We'll wrap up this video with 2 points outstanding. Firstly, I will need to drill and tap the cylinder cover bolt holes, but I'll be doing that with the cylinder covers, so they need to be machined. And secondly, I may need to come back and look at those steam passages that run through to the ends of the cylinders. Other than that, I'll call these cylinder blocks as completed and say thanks for watching.